This video is sponsored by Gallery Books, publisher of Halo books based on the legendary franchise, and the upcoming Halo Shadows of Reach, a Master Chief story by Troy Denning. Shadows of Reach will be available on October 20th wherever books are sold, and if you're near a Walmart, you can grab a special edition with a bonus story. Check the link below for more details and purchase options. Reach, one of the most well-known locations in the Halo mythos, a location with a rich and storied history of its own. With a book set to return us to Reach just on the horizon, there's no better time to dive into the almost complete history of this planet. The planet known as Reach by 26th century humanity is the second planet in the Epsilon Eridani star system and has two moons named Chodosarvash and Turul by humanity. Epsilon Eridani is a K2 orange-red dwarf and home to several other habitable planets including Tribute, aka Epsilon Eridani 3, Epsilon Eridani 4, Beta Gabriel, Circumstance, and Tantalus. The system also has two asteroid fields and an Oort cloud. The Epsilon Eridani system is an estimated 400 to 800 million years old, significantly younger than humanity's home system, which makes the geological stability of Reach and presence of some native life all the more remarkable. Reach is slightly larger than Earth with a diameter of 15,273 kilometers or 9,490 miles and a gravitational pull of 1.08 Gs, only slightly more than Earth. The system and planet were known to the Forerunners during the height of their civilization, and evidence of their presence is found on Reach and throughout the system. On Reach specifically, a large complex was constructed beneath what came to be known as the Menachite Mountains, which contained an odd crystal with strange properties connected to slipstream space, or slipspace, the dimension used by advanced civilizations to make travel across galactic space possible. It has been theorized that this crystal might be related to slipspace flakes, a central component of Forerunner slipspace drives, though this is unconfirmed. The other central Forerunner site on Reach was beneath the Bad Catha ice shelf, a Forerunner ship once used by the builder Rate. How this ship came to be on Reach and eventually trapped beneath the ice shelf is unknown. Given the Forerunner presence found in the Epsilon Eridani system, one cannot help but wonder if the stability of the system and presence of native life, particularly on Reach, might be due to Forerunner meddling. Following the firing of the Halo array and reseeding of the galaxy around 97,445 BCE, Reach's history was largely uneventful. Epsilon Eridani was catalogued by the recovered human race at least as early as the 2nd century CE by Claudius Ptolemy, a Greek astronomer. Between 1881 and 1883 CE, American astronomer William L. Elkin observed Epsilon Eridani and measured its stellar parallax, or movement across the sky as Earth orbits the Sun, to estimate its distance. By 1917, the parallax value was estimated to be 0.317 arcseconds and further refined to 0.3109, giving the star an estimated 10.5 light-year distance from Earth. The earliest detections of planets orbiting Epsilon Eridani happened around 1987, and the planet that would eventually be designated Reach was identified later in the 21st century. In 2291, humanity discovered slipspace travel thanks to the brilliant minds of Drs. Tobias Fleming Shaw and Wallace Fujikawa with the creation of the Shaw-Fujikawa Translight engine. By 2362, the engine had been fitted to massive colony ships which would deploy to select planets and begin humanity's extrasolar colonization, the Damus Diaspora. The first planet to be colonized was Epsilon Eridani 2, Reach, by the colony ship Odyssey. In addition to its proximity to the Sol system, Reach's stability and rich titanium deposits made it an extremely attractive prospect. Though it wasn't exactly hostile to human life, Reach did require some level of terraforming. The early colonists of Reach were seemingly primarily British and Hungarian in origin, as Hungarian is a common language on the planet and several places hold Hungarian names. At the same time, there are plenty of English names for other locations, and many natives have been observed to hold a British accent. Once the colonization process was underway, Reach's titanium deposits would continue to be mined well into the 26th century, with plenty left to extract. While its proximity to Earth and early establishment likely aided in Reach emerging as the largest extrasolar military powerhouse, the abundance of titanium, vital to the construction of hulls of spaceships, particularly military vessels, would only further cement the colony's importance to humanity. As the colony grew, several metropolitan cities sprang up across the planet, though most notably on Reach's large Vieri territory. Among others, these included Kazan, home to the 24 Hours of Kazan Motorsport event, an event AMG Transport Dynamics would often enter their prototypes into, occasionally winning. Manassas, home to the bustling Manassas spaceport and one of Reach's 9 space elevators. Esztergom, home to its own spaceport and one of the 3 largest cities on Reach along with Kazan and Manassas. And of course, the crown jewel, New Alexandria. Like most cities on Reach, New Alexandria was a planned community, with much of its buildings and infrastructure prefabricated and built into a cohesive urban habitat. Sky bridges, walkways, and maglev train lines connected the city's various locations, with streets a rare sight to see. The city was home to 3 space elevators, known as the Delphi Triple Strand Network, the UNSC's FleetCom Command Headquarters, and ONI's Olympic Tower. In addition, several major companies had operations or even headquarters on Reach, particularly in New Alexandria, likely given its status as a coastal city and the presence of the Delphi Triple Strand Network. Synoviet Heavy Machinery had its aptly named Synoviet Center. Traxxas Heavy Industries had Traxxas Tower, located near the city's cargo port. Viren Telecom had their own tower in the city, which was home to the illustrious Club Herrera. And Nomolos Refining, DNBM Financial, and Misria Armory all had towers in the city. And of course, being based on Reach, Jotun Heavy Industries had its headquarters in downtown New Alexandria. But it's not all heavy machinery and military, as places like New Alexandria concourses were home to the Skyway Cafe or the World Cuisine, the latter offering the famous Moa burger. Citizens could also enjoy themselves at places like Caracalla Park. Despite the heavy industrialization across the planet, other areas would retain a rural state, with several rural communities established in areas like Visegrad. Largely self-sufficient, these farms and communities lived in utilitarian settlements called kivas, with ready access to renewable energy sources such as wind or hydropower. However, as the colony continued to grow, at least some believed these farming and handicraft communities were dying and felt pressure to move to more metropolitan areas. Reach's ancient history would not go undiscovered by the human military, the United Nations Space Command or UNSC. Titanium mining operations in the Menakite Mountains stumbled upon the Forerunner facility buried beneath the mountains, causing the Office of Naval Intelligence, or ONI, to commandeer the mining location and establish Castle Base. ONI's sword base was presumably similarly established, given its direct proximity over the Forerunner builder ship. In addition to these locations, Reach was home to several military installations and projects, including the military nexus in the Highland Mountains, which included Castle Base, Reach Highcom, FleetCom, and Camp Hathcock. The space over Reach would also become home to several shipbuilding yards and space stations, and 20 orbital defense platforms. As time went on, Reach's population grew, becoming the second most populated planet with a population of 703,341,500 by 2535. Among this population would be individuals like Captain of the UNSC Spirit of Fire James Cutter, George 052, a Spartan 2 from the small city of Palhaza, and Marcus Hudson, a future ODST from New Alexandria. As the population and distances across the stars increased for humanity at large, so too would a growing sense of detachment from the core worlds. Reach, despite its military presence, did not escape the insurrectionist movement that started popping up in the late 25th century. By the early 26th century, the UNSC counter-operation was in full swing as Operation Trebuchet tried to quell the tide of the insurrection. However, with projections only showing an increase in uprisings, a new approach had to be taken. And so, the Orion II project was initiated. Begun in 2511, ONI recruited the then 19-year-old Dr. Catherine Elizabeth Halsey to oversee their new program. Under her guidance, radical new approaches to super soldier development were made, particularly when it came to candidate selection. In 2517, The rebranded Spartan 2 program kidnapped 75 children, all age 6, from across human space and brought them to Camp Hathcock on the planet Reach. For the next 8 years, the children would be trained as soldiers and eventually subjected to horrific experimental treatments. Those that weren't killed or crippled became the now legendary Spartan 2s. These Spartans would quickly prove effective against the Insurrection, which continued to operate across human space. In 2525, the Human Covenant War began. Reach would largely go unaffected for these early years, as the alien threat had appeared at the edges of human colonized space, far from Reach. However, its industries almost certainly saw significant growth as the demands of the military grew in response to the Covenant threat, and industries in competition on other colonies disappeared. In other instances, operations, machines, and personnel were evacuated to Reach to bolster the war effort, such as the case when an unnamed ship manufacturer's supplies and personnel were moved from the colony of Skopje to Reach in 2547. Despite this existential threat, insurrectionist activity continued, albeit at a lesser rate, such as in 2531 when Spartan 2 Blue Team put down an insurrectionist saboteur cell on Reach. Smaller cells would continue to operate on Reach and other Epsilon Eridani locations too, though again, often in a smaller capacity. During this time, Dr. Halsey would largely be secluded to her lab deep within Castle Base, where she continued aiding the development of Project Mjolnir in collaboration with the Mizria Armory, the project that produced the Mjolnir-powered assault armor worn by Spartan personnel. In the following decades, she would also devote time to AI research, reverse engineering Covenant technology, and research in xenoarchaeology, among several other projects over the years. In 2549, she illegally grew clones of herself, mutated to encourage brain growth, in order to create, quote, better material for a new AI, the AI that became Cortana. For almost 3 decades, Reach escaped the direct terror of the Covenant, but on July 23rd, the Covenant's fleet of Valiant Prudence, under the command of Supreme Commander Ro Barutami, had found the human colony thanks to a Forerunner cache discovered in the Beta Eridani system. This had pointed Ro directly to the ship underneath Reach, and he sent in a group of Sangheili zealots to scout the planet for invasion. While Spartan Team Noble was able to fight off initial Covenant forces, a larger invasion was underway by August. Noble and the UNSC's army were largely able to keep the threat out of most major metropolitan areas, and only kept the entire invasion quiet. But on August 30th, a massive invasion fleet of 300 ships appeared. Unknown to the UNSC, this fleet had discovered the planet thanks to a tiny tracking device on the UNSC Iroquois and was operating separate from the previous invasion force. Ultimately though, this did not matter, and Reach fell just hours later. Despite their overwhelming victory and the ceasing of official UNSC activity by September 5th, Covenant activity continued well into the month as the Covenant searched for the Forerunner artifacts known to be on the planet. The UNSC had enacted Operation White Glove to attempt to bury the Forerunner sites and destroy the data they'd collected, keeping it out of Covenant hands, which at least delayed the Covenant's efforts. This provided enough time for a group of Spartan 2 survivors and Dr. Halsey to escape the planet following the discovery of the Forerunner crystal in the complex that lay beneath the ruins of Castle Base. Reach was the last colony to fall during the Human Covenant War, with Earth coming under attack less than a month later, and the war ending soon after. Following the war's conclusion, Reach was identified as a prime recolonization candidate for both its continued strategic importance, given its proximity to Earth, and its symbolic value. Further, the Covenant never truly completed the glassing of the planet, in part due to the extended search for Forerunner relics and the later spiriting away of one by surviving Spartan 2s and other survivors. This left Reach with a handful of intact settlements and a few functional space elevators. By 2558, Reach had a population of 121,000, largely survivors and UEG contractors, with minimal UNSC presence and the known presence of Kig-Yar salvagers. Any operations were heavily classified by ONI, but rumors had it that they intended to dispatch a select group of Spartan 4s to search the ruins of Castle Base for reasons unknown. By 2589, Reach would largely return to a habitable state, with recolonization occurring by July 7th of that year, though destroyed ships and debris from the planet's fall to the Covenant still remained scattered across the surface. By 2610, both Estergom and New Alexandria saw reconstruction, with a statue of the heroic noble team erected in the city's Hushuktere, Heroes Square. But the story of Halo goes on, and though we know where Reach's fate ultimately lies, the planet still holds many secrets. With the rising of the Created in October of 2558, UNSC activity was largely redirected towards resistance operations and searching for ways of countering the new AI threat. One potential solution lies beneath the glasslands of Reach, the ruins of Castle Base. It is October 2559, 1 year since Cortana returned with her decree of peace, and Blue Team are being sent back to Reach, back to their home, to find that solution. It will not be easy, as on top of the existing threats, another alien faction has appeared on the planet. Who is this faction, and what has Blue Team been sent to find? We'll have to wait for Halo: Shadows of Reach to find out. I would like to once again thank Gallery Books for sponsoring this video. They've done a great job with the Halo books since taking over, and I'm very excited to read Halo: Shadows of Reach when it releases on October 20th. Once again, check the link in the description box below for details on pre-order options. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed this look at the history of Reach, so far at least. If you enjoyed this, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. But whether you do or not, always remember, keep on being awesome, Canonites.